alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a new guest to the show, Mark Leslie. Welcome to the podcast. Jeez, I screwed that up. Anyway, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tim. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. And you have one fiction book out there as of at this time, right? Just the one?
No, I've got a...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm misled.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. I only heard about one. What kind of fiction do you have out there? Oh, okay. Well, you're ahead of me then. My book comes out next week.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
I have a series called Canadian Werewolf Series, and I have a new novel in that series just out as of the end of February, and several other standalone novels. So probably, I guess, 6 in total in terms of those. Oh, nice. And then a bunch of nonfiction titles, half a dozen true ghost story books, and I've edited probably another half dozen anthologies, and then everything else is short story collections. So
how many of those do you have, though?
Oh boy,
a
8,
lot.
9,
Okay,
10.
got it.
Yeah. So.
A number of them, greater than 10.
It's something like that. Yeah.
Okay, well that's actually really impressive. I'm very curious about the short stories because I've been in a couple anthologies, but I don't think I'd have the guts to edit one, honestly. But first tell us about the new book. What's that about?
So the new book is called Fear and Longing in Los Angeles, and it is a continuation of my Canadian werewolf character who started off in a Canadian werewolf in New York. Small town country bumpkin, basically alpha wolf, beta human. You never see him as a wolf, you only see him as a human, and he's dealing with the side effects of actually turning into a wolf during the cycle of the moon, and it comes with side effects. So it comes with enhanced abilities and powers that he uses like a vigilante crime fighter. And so he is in Los Angeles on the set of a movie that he's working on, inspired from one of his books, and trying to get over a lost love back home. And learning, there's a potential love interest there, but she may have a mysterious secret, and it may be tied to this underground community of like a mafia that seems to have superpowers themselves. And so that's basically the premise of the novel. It's basically him trying to come to terms with, can he trust her? Can he trust himself with her? And what is really going on in the shadows of, is Hollywood even scarier than we think it is?
Well, I mean, I've got to imagine it's pretty scary indeed. It would have to be, it would have to be way scary to be scarier than I think it is. I don't know. I've only been there once, but it's not exactly my cup of tea.
Yeah, welcome to the jungle.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, geez. That's a whole other show, probably. But. That sounds great. You kind of got this classic kind of paranormal vibe, but in Tinseltown.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, it's been a fun experience moving the character from his home stomping grounds or his home territory in Manhattan, and moving him to LA and just seeing what happens.
So you say there's other books in between these two, right? Or am I getting mixed up?
Yeah. So I have the first full length novel in that series is called A Canadian Werewolf in New York, and it takes place in a single day where you see him from sun up to sundown. And then the next book in the series is a novella. I call it book 1.5 because it's only about 25,000 words, so it's not a full length, but it's not. It's more than a short story, and that's called Stowaway, where he is on a train to Stowe, Vermont, to go see a friend and help them out. And the train's going to get there before sundown, and it's that time of the month for him. And in the midst of this train, he finds this young girl who is on the run from a human predator. And so he kind of takes her under his wing. And it's been described as a cross between Logan planes, trains, and automobiles, because there's this, Wolverine kind of character with those kinds of powers, with protecting a young girl while going across country.
No, there's some similarities, that's for sure.
And there's, because of the humor and the fact that they may not go straight to their destination. There's that sort of humorous aspect of the, I guess, the things that can happen on the journey that, where you're not going to get there right away.
Oh, yes. Yes. I do love a good journey story. I mean, who doesn't when they write, of the epic fantasy writers like myself or epic sci-fi, that's the sort of stuff. It's interesting because because in the modern world, travel can be so quick, but then it can also be, but then there's so many methods that are kind of interesting as opposed to, fantasy where we're mostly talking walking or riding or horse. I guess still a lot of methods, but they're not as distinct because they don't have vehicles the way we do.
Yeah, that's true. And again, that's the journey is a major part of those stories because. Yeah, it's like, let's go on a quest. It's like, okay, we need to pack. We need to prepare. It's not just get a plane ticket and go, right? You've got to have rations and supplies and all the things.
Yeah, there's this kind of, I almost want to say kind of romantic idea of like, you just hop on the plane and you can be anywhere practically,
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world. Not that long. I mean, I guess 20 some hours in some cases. Oof. But having taken some of those flights, I can tell you that's not a ton of fun. But it's still like you're not marching for 40 days just to get a part way on your journey, like in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an interesting thing because when I was writing Stowaway, it was initially for an anthology that was called Monster Road Trip. And they wanted to have monsters on a road trip. So I'm like, okay, I'll send Michael, my main character. I'll send him on a road trip. Where is he going to go? And I was like, and then I just, the whole idea of him being stuck on a train and he's going to turn into a wolf. Oh boy. Okay. Let's play with that.
That's
and
great,
then so it's like, well, where would he go? Stowe, Vermont. Oh, why? Because his best friend's, has had a family emergency. Well, why can't he fly? Well, because he's a Canadian, he doesn't have his passport. He's living in the States, and why can't he rent a car? Well, he hasn't had a driver's license because it hasn't been renewed since he's moved.
He lives in Manhattan. He doesn't need one.
Yeah, and you don't need to drive, and you live in a city like that. So I had to. The logistics of the travel is like, well, why didn't he just get on a plane? Because then there would be no story.
Or it would be werewolves on a plane. You could.
Yeah. Although
it wouldn't be a road trip at that point.
But that's how the next novel opens. The prelude to that novel is him on the plane on his way back from L.A., turning to his companion and going, "Uh-oh," with all the delays and everything. It's like, sundown's coming. I'm going to be turning into a wolf when we're in the air. This isn't good.
Oh,
and that's how it opens. And then we flash back to lead up to that. To that event. So I did end up putting him on a plane like that.
That's kind of. I mean, there's so many good ways you can mess with the involuntary transformation of a lot of kinds, but. Especially that one. I mean, especially the werewolf's such a classic. I say involuntary transformation to genericize it, but it's when most people think a shapeshifter, they think a werewolf anyway.
And they're different kinds, right? There's ones where they're under it, they control it themselves, or they're even conscious. And I wanted him to actually shift into an actual mammal, not a upright walking man wolf. And so he has no memory of when he's a wolf. So so they're like two complete different individuals, like kind of the original Incredible Hulk, right?
And
Bruce Banner.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking though. How do you handle that in the story? Is it just you get a time skip basically, and you don't see what happens if he turns into a wolf?
So, in the first book, in A Canadian Werewolf in New York, it starts as he wakes up naked in Battery Park with a bullet hole in his leg and the taste of human blood in his mouth, and he's like, "Oh God, what did I do last night?"
Yeah,
and because there's a lot of dark humor through it, and you don't actually. It ends before sundown, so you only see him as a human, and then there are these little interludes where you see these clips of when he's a wolf, but they're very brief and they're kind of represented that. Like a dream that you can't quite remember. That's kind of all he has is these weird visuals and senses. And so that's what I did there. In Stowaway, where he ends up actually turning into a wolf, he has no memory, and it's first-person narrative. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes blank. He doesn't know what happens, and then he wakes up.
We see what happens after that, though. We just see the
yeah.
So it'd be like when they take the adrenochrome in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
yeah, something like that.
Like that's the one where where you actually don't see what happens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you don't see.
That's the one where it's not like he's not hallucinating; it's just over. He's gone.
Yeah, and that's the experience, right? I mean, I grew up. I had epilepsy when I grew up, and there would be times when I would just black out, and I would wake up, and I would not know what happened.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like I was drawing upon those experiences, going, yeah, it's like that, right? He feels it coming on. He's going to turn into a wolf, and then the next thing you know is he's waking up and it's all over. It's like, you're in an operating room and next thing you know, they ask you to count backwards from 100. They put the thing on your face and the next thing you know, you're waking up 2 hours later.
Yeah, you got stitches or whatever. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Down one appendix. Anyway, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's so it's actually really fascinating. The both dream and dreamless unconsciousness. Both of those are very, very interesting to me. I'm not trouble with epilepsy, but I've definitely been squeamish enough to have passed out a few times in my life, and it is weird to wake up like even after a second of just unconsciousness like that.
Yeah, like what happened? Or you fainted, or you passed out, or I mean, because again, it can happen.
It's like reality skipped. Now I'm on the floor. Right? Yeah,
yeah. Damn, it's like what happened? It's like, well, I guess you're pretty pleased with the result, or it surprised you.
I guess so.
Because it can happen at any time, right?
Exactly. But then you add to that the fact that you keep doing stuff. I mean, that's real phenomena. When I have passed out, I keep talking, which surprises no one, I think, but I don't know what I said, and that's really weird. That's a weird thing to know. Like there's people out there who heard me talk, and I don't even know what I said.
Well, it was funny when I had an operation earlier this week, and I was talking to the anesthesiologist, and they didn't put me out. They did a local. And he said, okay, you'll be fine. You're not squeamish, so you'll be okay. Well, we'll be talking, but you're going to be pretty high, so you may not remember the conversation. So when I finished, I was having a good old time. I'm doing Monty Python jokes, the whole bit. When he rolled me out, he's like, do you remember? I was like, yeah, I do. Actually, I remember everything. Wow. He goes, okay, not everyone does. So I was like, I hope I didn't say anything too embarrassing.
Yeah, no, but I guess that loss of control is very interesting in fiction, though. Especially because you say, this werewolf guy in your series, he's got kind of powers when he's not a werewolf too, right? If it's not before nightfall, when he's not turned into a wolf, he's still got these abilities, and that's. But then there's this, and so there's this loss of control is the primary function of him turning into the wolf almost.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, how do you have a normal relationship? When you have to sneak away to turn into a wolf, how do you hold a job? How can you even work in shift work when you're like, well, I'm going to be gone for 7 days because I can't. I'm going to ruin my uniform. How do you deal
a whole
with clothes?
week? A whole week? That's brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, and you wake up somewhere. So he often goes to Central Park and he plans it out because he has to have clothes. He wakes up and he's naked because wolves don't carry backpacks, so he has to come up with a plan on where he's going to have these stashes of clothes. Of course, there may be homeless folks who find them and go, "Hey, right on, I'd like a pair of pants." Right,
gotta hide those pretty well.
Sometimes he wakes up and the clothes are missing, or he he's not where he thinks he's going to be. Like in the first novel, he wakes up in Battery Park, which is on the southern tip of Manhattan, which is miles away from where he normally has all his stashes of clothes. He's like, okay, how am I going to get home now? I'm naked. This is going to be embarrassing. I'm going to get arrested. The whole bit, right?
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's a nightmare for a lot of people, obviously. I mean, that as in a common nightmare that people actually have.
Yeah, you have no clothes or you're in your pajamas or something like that. It's like, imagine that you have to put up with that for one week every month.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, geez, that sounds like a real bother. I mean, at that point, it is a disease. It's an illness. You can't. Yeah. But what you said made me think of one other thing, because there's this attention to detail that I'm getting from this that is very interesting. That there's because. a lot of these, like you said before, there's different kinds of werewolves and different kinds of stories. And if you just take away things for them to worry about, you end up with a more streamlined, kind of more superhero-y vibe there. Like, say they're conscious when they turn into a wolf, or they turn into a wolf person, so they still can pick things up. They're still, the more human you make them as a wolf, the less animalistic, the more the experience is theirs to control.
Right.
But also, you miss the more the myth, the more of the original kind of concept you're losing. And I find that very interesting, because there's a certain amount of starkness to concepts like that. To the original, like yours seems very close to actually the original werewolf kind of stories, in the way the rules work. And sometimes that's really cool. I mean, I find that it's missing in a lot of more modern interpretations.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing, right? Is there's so many interpretations of Wolf. Even when I'd hired a cover designer, and again, because I mean, they're not going to read the book; they don't know it, so they just kind of get an idea. And the original covers were these, wolf men standing up. And I was like, nope, not like that.
Can't do it.
It's just like, think of like a gray wolf, right? That's what I want. That's what he is. Which again, and again, I did a Canadian Werewolf in New York, obviously as a cheeky nod to American Werewolf in London. And I remember that was the first movie I ever saw where it looked painful when he turned into a wolf. And so one of the rationales that I've made is, well, the reason he doesn't remember it is because it's so traumatic. When you go from, like, you're a 6-foot man and you're changing the face of the shape of your face, and your hands become paws. Like, your bone structure is it's got to be
a completely different thing at the end.
Yeah, it's got to be such a horrifying, traumatic experience. No wonder he doesn't have any memory of it, because that's the mind protecting itself from that dangerous trauma. Now, he does encounter another wolf who is conscious as a wolf, but this person is insane. They've lost touch with reality, potentially because when you're conscious of going through that change, you don't come out the other end a rational human being.
Nice. That's a nice element to add. I mean, obviously horrific, but that's a great way to make it, make a more gritty kind of approach to this kind of storyline that has often become, hunky werewolf on the cover, shirtless guy on the cover kind of books.
Yeah. Not my audience.
Nah, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could write that kind of book either. I'm not sure if I'd want to, but it is an interesting kind of. There's this dichotomy. There's same with vampires, but I think that it's more common almost for the werewolf to be the side character if it's in one of these kitchen sink universes, right, where they've got everything going on. Yeah. And it's interesting to me that. Yeah, I mean, so does your universe have other supernatural or creatures or anything like that in there?
So it's funny, I've struggled with that, because when I first launched it, I thought, no, I just want to look at it. It's this weird anomaly. He has no one to talk to because no one else would understand it. And how does he deal with this? Because again, if someone finds out about it, they're going to put him in a lab, right? He's not going to have a normal life, so he keeps it a secret. And then in the novella, there's no one. Well, actually, and then he does encounter another wolf. So that kind of suggests, well, if there's one, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And then in the second book, I actually, thanks to I was did a Yale University Press book called Hitler's Monsters by Eric Kurlander.
Oh yeah.
It came out just a few years ago. And they did have theories that or legends that the German army had werewolves, and they were using that to scare. But there's all of this documented, all of these experiments that they were doing to try to make a super soldier by trying to use magic and powers. Yeah. And so I'm imagining this modern Nazi group who are successful combining magic and science with these weird combination of potions and things to try to create this super race of beings. And this maybe he's learning, like, oh my God, am I one of them? Like, because the only supernatural people I've ever encountered so far have been bad guys. Like, so that there's this whole, I don't know if I want to be this anymore. I mean, not that
if I could choose, I wouldn't, though. Yeah.
So that's as I was writing the book, it was kind of funny. I had this story arc, And I was about 3/4 of the way when I realized there's no way I'm going to finish this in one book. So I had to resolve the significant issue of this book. And then in the midst of writing it, I reached out to my cover designer and I came up with another title. And I was like, hey, here's what I need. I better release this in December because I got to finish this story arc. And it's called Fright Night's Big City. Again, because I'm going with that cheeky nod to the familiar, right? With the fear and longing in Los Angeles kind of thing. Yeah. And so that's where that story arc is going to go. And I was like, okay, I accidentally, when I was doing research to figure out who are these scary people doing nasty things in the dark? As I was doing the research, I realized it was going to be way, way bigger, and he was going to uncover this whole other world of people that we don't know about, that are pulling the strings and making bad things happen to good people. So that was a lot of fun. It was kind of like, as I was writing the book, I realized who the bad guys were. And how much bigger they were than just a single guy twiddling his mustache, right?
Yeah, and that kind of begs the question, though. Do you have do you plan your books heavily, or does this kind of thing come out of left field all the time?
Well, I planned this book. So this book, I had a concept of him in L.A. and meeting someone, and then encountering more supernatural and digging a little, like uncovering the mystery one layer further, and it would end with a resolution within that. Mm-hmm. But that was it. It was kind of like, it was really, you would think it'd be maybe a page of notes that would say, and then this happens and this happens, this happens. Okay, good. Now write it. So I'd never outlined it in any significant detail. I just have the idea and then I write. And then sometimes when I write, I go off, the character's taking on a tangent. It happened in Stowaway. In Stowaway, the character, the young girl that he was protecting was meant to be one of the distractions he had on the train. And she became the whole main plot line with him because I loved her character. She was such a cool kid. And he liked her too, and they got along, and like they clicked. Like, and it was kind of funny. I just put the two of them together, and the minute that they met each other and started talking, they took over the story for me, and I was just watching what they were doing and writing it down, and so it was really cool. I was like, oh, cool. And I bet you she's going to come back in a future book because they've got this bond, they've got this friendship, like almost like a father-daughter kind of relationship, but. And that caught me by surprise. And when I told the editor of the anthology of the story, I was like, yeah, it'll be about 8,000 words. And then when I came back, I'm like, well, it's 24,000. And the editor went, yeah, that's what I was guessing based on what you were telling me.
On the pitch you gave him. Yeah. Interesting. Because that's... Yeah, I don't tend to write long. It's kind of weird. Like, I do discovery write as well. I basically discover almost everything about the story as I go.
Yep.
But for somehow, I seem to always end up like nailing my word count or making it, or even going shorter than the word count, just a little shorter than the word count I initially anticipate.
Really?
But that's especially with novel length. It's kind of weird. I like to have... Because like I've been saying, I'm writing these big fantasy books, and the first one was 120,000 words, and then the next one I thought, oh, this will be even longer, and it ended up being shorter.
Wow.
And the same with this third one. I thought it was going to be the longest one. Instead, it will probably be the shortest, or about the same length as the second one. And that is kind of... it's a little disappointing to me, but it's also just kind of how I do, because I find shortcuts. It's this weird thing. Like, the characters are smarter than I am, is basically what I'm trying to say. Because they can think of better ways to solve their problems than I can.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. They figured it out, and they're like, "Hey, no, we got you here. We got you, Tim."
Yeah, exactly. They got me covered. They're watching my back because apparently somebody has to. And they keep me from having to write, another 170,000 word book. That's a long book. Yeah, I only did one of those. Time. Yeah. And that wasn't even fantasy. It was a really weird mistake to make, but people seem to like that one, so no big deal. It's just these books you're writing, most of them are novel length, and there's the one novella, or do you go back and forth?
So I have only the two novel lengths right now, the novella, and then the original. The original was a 10,000 word story. So the whole Canadian Werewolf came out of I was writing for an anthology again, and it was the beast, the man behind the monster was the theme, and that's where I came up with the idea. So that was a 10,000 word story that turned into the novel. But I have a meet cute, which is a romance term for when two people first meet one another to fall in love. And so there is a significant relationship, he like an ex-girlfriend in this first novel. And so I'm writing that, which I'm guessing is supposed to be, I'm thinking it might be about 10 to 15,000 words.
Okay.
And then I'm also writing, so the bad guy in the first book, and this came because my cover designer designed a cover I couldn't use because it wasn't Michael, my werewolf, but it was another kind of wolf, werewolf. And I was like, oh, maybe I should. So I just gave him the money. I'm like, okay, I'll buy that cover too, and I'll use it as a spin-off. So I have plans for some novella length and maybe 8 to 10,000 K stories for the character or the universe. So it's interesting because I've never done that before, where I've done both novels and short stories in the same universe. So this, to me, that's a new experience, and it allows me to experiment. Because with short fiction, and I'm sure you know this, but with short fiction you can get away with a lot more. You don't need to develop you don't need to develop things as detailed. You don't need to have like multiple plot lines and things that come together and multiple points of view. For example, in a longer work like an epic fantasy, but in a short story, it can just be like a scene. It can be one thing, and so I think with short stories you can really experiment and play a lot more. And I really like that because the reader's not as invested. So usually with a novel, you have to have a happy ending.
Yeah.
Usually, right? The people that
you
have
can't
invested
take everyone through the end and have a tragic ending that's where the characters lose. That's going to disappoint a lot of readers. Yeah.
Yeah, but in a short story, it's like, they're only investing like 3,000 words, right? They're only investing X amount of time. So I can play with them. I can really twist them.
You get to the point where you can actually have any outcome practically, because the short story doesn't have as much buildup. I see what you're saying there. I mean, it can be because it's a moment, not a commitment.
Yeah, and I mean, even like when I look at this time around was the short story, the 10,000 word story, and the story was guy wakes up, naked in Battery Park, bullet hole. He's like, what the heck happened? And you never find out what happened because that's not the point. The point is, how is he gonna deal with this situation now?
Yep.
And that's where the story ended. But a good friend of mine who doesn't like short fiction and only writes novels, he reads it and he goes, what happens next? I go, what do you mean that nothing happens next? It's over. He solved the problem and that's it. He's like, well, what about the other wolf? I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like whatever happened the other night before, it doesn't matter. This is just another morning for him. He always has mornings like this, right? That's the story. And then he started asking questions. I'm like, okay, what happens the rest of his day? Let's write that, and that became the book. But there are some readers who just they like the story and they stop there and they're like, no, I'm good, I'm happy, I don't need any more. And then there are others, those tend to be my favorite readers, who have to read the full-length novel now. It's like, okay, I like this guy, I want to see what happens the rest of his day, and so it's kind of fun that you can have both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. There's room for both, and it's one of my series. I started with a novella. And then I have a novel, and I kind of go back to a shorter novel, which is kind of weird. And that series is my strangest series, as far as delivery as well, because it's first person, but with some third person elements in there during certain parts.
Right.
And that was the problem. But I think the length thing is not the problem with that series. I sometimes worried that the length's like, I start with the first book's too short. Well, that's probably not the issue. It's probably that it's actually kind of difficult to read because of all the point of view switching.
Right.
Anyway, no, but absolutely sounds good. Sounds like a fascinating series, actually. I'm gonna have to check some of those out. Actually, I'll definitely have to look up the first one. at least to get my.
Well, the first one's free on most platforms.
Is it
like the 10,000 words. Amazon sometimes price matches to free, but everywhere else it's free, and it may be 99 cents on Amazon, depending on how they're feeling that day. But I like that because then people can try it without. It's not that much of an investment in time or money. And if they don't like it, then they move on. And if they like it, well, then they've got something. So I kind of like having a funnel like that.
Nice, definitely a good idea. But we're about out of time. So Mark Leslie, tell people where they can find you and your other work, because we just heard where you can get that for short story.
You can find out everything about me over at markleslie.ca.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks again to Mark Leslie for being on the podcast. As for this show, you can find more of us at mentalcellularpublications.com. Man, I could do the pitch. I do the pitch every week. You can find my books on Amazon.com in ebook, and you can find them basically wherever you can get print-on-demand books in print. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks again to Mark Leslie for being on the show. Have a good week, everyone, and stay safe.
That tears it.